Yeah, it was a good time, honey, under the sky. Yeah, it was a good time, honey, just you and I. Feeling alright.
Hey, welcome to All Wheels Podcast, episode 2. This is Evan, and I'm joined by Brady and Max. So say hi, guys.
How you doing?
How's it going out there?
Okay, so we're back. I hope you listened to episode 1 already, but if you didn't miss anything critical here. But it's
It was so good.
but it was an intro, and if you're going to start listening to this or hop in, it at least kind of explains who we are, because we're not going to go back through all that stuff again.
No, that was the bad episode.
That's
for
number
me.
one. Number one's never
just
a great episode.
getting it
you gotta
out.
get the ball rolling, you know?
I say go back and listen to Brady's Engaging
Yeah.
Life.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really good.
I didn't know that was that was shared.
It's an episode 1. That's the point of it. You got to get it started somehow.
That's
it's not
it.
going to be perfect.
Mm.
But I guarantee you, not a single person is going to listen to this because we're perfect. So I don't think that's a problem.
No, absolutely not.
All right. So the topic we're doing this time, which I think should say something, it should appeal to anybody who wants to listen to this, is buying your first motorcycle. So like we talked about in our first episode, that, what kind of started all this is motorcycles. We're certainly not confining the show to that. It's going to be all sorts of stuff. But we figured we'd start there because it's something that we're all pretty much obsessed with. So it's a good place to start. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But first off, let's start. We used to do this segment on our Motorbike Mondays podcast called What's in the Shop, and we were just debating that. I think we're going to keep it. And
Do you know what?
Yes,
can I
okay.
cut you off real quick? Just in honor
I want to hear
of
Jared do it. Actually, I know what you're going to say. And I wish he was here to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Can I do it
Yeah,
just
seriously.
this one time? What's in the shop?
Jared used to sing the
that the jingle?
What's in the shop?
Yeah.
What's in the shop?
All right, I promise that will be the first and
I
only
have
time
a feeling that's not
I
going to be
do
true.
that.
In fact, I'd like to have Jared on here just to do that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, we'll get a sample.
Oh yeah, we could just
We'll
have him
get a
record
sample
it
from him when
yeah.
he's on.
I'd like it with a full
No.
orchestra and shit behind it too, to really get the point across.
We'll double.
I missed
we'll
that. That
double
was
his
rad. I
voice
always
up.
remember Jared doing that. What's in the shop?
Yeah, and how much it
Yeah,
just
you did not
pissed
like
me
that.
off. I was a young man at that
It
time.
wasn't that long ago, Brady.
So,
Yeah.
so what's in the shop was a segment we used to do, and we'd like to carry on. Essentially, what we're working on currently.
Yeah.
We usually all have something going on in the shop, garage, whatever it may be.
Well, it might be work. It might be your own
and,
project. Whatever it is, doesn't matter. Something recent or interesting you're
Yeah,
doing
just
or working on.
what you're working on.
Well, you're already
who wants to
talking.
start?
What are you doing?
That's it.
All right. So what's in my shop? Well, there's a lot in my
Yeah.
shop.
that sounds like it.
You better pick one.
It's gonna be something rad too.
So-
It's not like he's not fixing a fucking bicycle or something.
Well, what I was currently working on today was a project that I had completed. It was a 53 Chevy Suburban,
Sweet.
Whoa.
and had built it from frame up.
Was the Suburban back
essentially.
then the panel van thing, or did it still have windows throughout it?
So that they had a panel, and then they had Suburban, which was carry-all essentially.
No
It's
seats.
a 3100. No, it actually still had the original 3
shit.
rows of seats.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, that third row is pretty rare. And
sick. I'm
having
looking
Yeah,
at
original.
I gotta look at a
Looking at
picture of
pictures
that.
right now.
Yeah.
Wow.
50.
Yeah, it's like a
53,
panel
you
and
said?
full windows and
Yeah. But funny enough, I was
dude.
also working on today
Wow.
a 51 panel 3800, which is even more rare.
A Chevy as well.
Yeah.
a 58.
The 51.
3800. What does that
the
mean?
3800 Yeah, that's it, it's lengthwise. It's
Oh,
kinda
that's like
we're
a heavy
rated
duty
by
truck.
how much they can hold. Yeah, so it's like
Oh, dude.
three and some feet.
Oh,
long.
wow,
Yeah,
look
that's
at
a
that thing.
Haas.
Yeah.
That is
yeah.
awesome.
Um, I'll get into
Dude,
that
I just want
later.
Brady's
I'm
job.
still,
I
that's
wanna
kind of
work
like
on
the
all these
current
rattling
project.
cars all the time.
Oh, well, I
awesome.
mean, the day before I was working on a 30 Model A with
my
a
God.
55 Hemi DeSoto motor.
Yeah,
in
you
it.
were saying you were about to get started on a Hemi. I think
Yeah.
last
Well,
podcast.
this is the Hemi I was talking about in the last one was a 392 Hemi that was just on its own. It doesn't even
Okay.
have a car yet.
Oh, okay.
But the 30 Model A has a 55 DeSoto. It's one of the smaller variants of the Hemi motors. It's the 291 Hemi.
Gotcha.
That's cool.
And that one, I didn't build the motor, but it was more just kind of basic tuning.
So at this
and
point, could you hop into
tune
a new
time
Hemi
and-
from the 50s you don't know shit about and you could build it? Like that you haven't already done before?
yes and no. It's what I've found is because I'm very new to the early Hemis. You can rebuild to say factory specs, but you're gonna have older problems. So there's a lot of hot rod stuff that
Right.
has been learned that you should do if you're going to open up an early Hemi. That I don't know
Right.
everything yet, but
Fuck, that's badass.
but yeah. So I was working on the '53 Suburban Carryall, and I built the frame. It has an LS 6.0 variant motor,
Nice.
heads, cam, with independent throttle bodies or downdraft.
Oh, that's gonna be a sweet setup. Is this gonna be a driver?
Oh, it's already. Oh yeah, I mean it was built to
Yeah,
be a
sounds
daily
like it.
driver.
Nice.
I don't know if we have an Instagram set up, but
Oh yeah, we
we'll,
could post pictures of this
I
stuff.
can throw a lot of photos.
Yeah, that'll be
of
fun
it.
because then people can get a
Right.
gist of what we're talking
Right.
about.
That's a
Some
good
photos.
idea.
Mm-hmm. So if you're familiar with like Hillborn injection, like old school Hillborn,
That was the old like
injection,
mechanical
it's
fuel injection, right? Yeah.
mechanical.
I don't
fuel
really know how it
injection,
works,
correct.
but
Nice.
Worked
right,
off of
I've seen
vacuum.
pictures of it and stuff.
So it's essentially a replication of that, but with modern electric fuel injection.
Wasn't the deal with
a
Hillborn was it had
bitch.
separate
But
it wasn't like a throttle body thing. It was like a separate injector for every cylinder, right?
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which was
exactly.
ahead of its time, it
Um,
seems like, for the what was that,
Oh,
50s, right?
absolutely.
Mid 50s or something?
Something of that, probably early, late 50s, mid 50s.
'Cause
late-
even the,
I don't know.
um,
We could do
the
a
Bel
podcast
Air,
on it because I'd be
You could
interested
get
too.
fuel injection on the what 57 or 6 or something Chevys, and they had
I don't think so. No, because I think Bosch fuel injection was the first to.
no
be
way.
in
I'm positive.
production,
Hang on, 57 Chevy
cars.
fuel injection. I
Yeah, it
guarantee you
says-
they did it.
Stuart Hillborn.
Yeah, the 283 and 57, you could get fuel injection on it. Yep.
As an
That's-
option?
Yeah, absolutely.
Factory option?
I knew I'd read something about this
Wow.
before. I don't even understand how it works. It's a crazy system, though. It's like nothing.
Yeah.
I have no understanding of how that system works.
Yeah, there's a.
I'm pretty
big,
sure it's like a throttle
fuel-
body type setup. You know, it's like one injection for the whole motor. It's not a cylinder by cylinder thing. Pretty sure.
Yeah, it works off of vacuum.
God, it sounds like
essentially.
a nightmare. to,
And
like,
then
tune that kind of shit. Oh my god.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
No way.
I worked on the 914, 72 914 Porsche, and it was factory Bosch fuel injection.
Yeah, I'll pass.
Oh, it was a nightmare. Yeah, we put
Sounds
Webers
like
on
a
it
plan.
at the end.
Nice. Well, that's
Yeah.
rad, man. I'm always
so
jealous
that's
of that.
what I was working on, at least on the Suburban, was just reinforcing the brake pedal assembly that I had done on it prior, and it's been a daily driver for
Right
6
on.
months, maybe longer. And that's kind of one of the last things that needed to be addressed, if so, because I prefer to overbuild anything doing with the braking system. It's proven itself to be fine, but I didn't want to question it.
Yeah,
from
no, that's always worth doing.
10, 50 years from now.
Right on.
So, but yeah, that's what is
Sweet.
in my shop.
Max, what are you doing?
Nice. Well, I'm still nursing my leg, so I don't get to do a ton of wrenching. But the things that I finished up my. I've got 2 BMW motorcycles. A 2001 R1150 GS, which is a dual sport motorcycle, large one,
Yeah.
touring.
Yeah.
1150?
1150, yeah, it's 01, 20 years
Did
old.
they have a 1140?
1100.
Nope,
No.
1100.
There, the 1150 is
Okay.
great. I got one for a while because Max had it, and it was just like the best all-around bike ever.
Yeah.
Really
Mine was
excellent.
the best all-around bike until I won the lottery in reverse, because in 2001 there was a batch
Oh yeah,
of
tell this
bikes
story.
that went out with a
You got fucked on this
misaligned.
thing.
Yeah, it's a misaligned transmission output shaft. So basically, if you just imagine the output shaft going straight in, and then you took your hand and moved it 1 degree over. So every time you're
Oh,
pushing the clutch, it's
my.
going in and out at a bad
Just
angle until it
destroying bearings.
stripped the whole spline, both on the clutch side and
Hey,
on
so
the
where
output
so
shaft.
where'd that fail on you?
Jeez.
on a big long road trip
In the
on the way
middle
home.
of
loaded
buttfuck
down.
Wyoming.
Wyoming. Yep. So I had to find and track down a guy out of Nebraska. He had an 04 that he blew the motor up in, and I pulled his 04 transmission out, which was great. And then I had to. The only way to disassemble the BMW is just all the way
It's
from the back.
gnarly.
It's
Yeah,
just a
split.
nightmare.
Really
It's just
bad.
a
Yeah.
gnarly job. So, but that's all done. And then I've got a 1971 R750, R75.5
Sweet bike.
that Evan was actually helping me with.
I
again-
like the
They're
slash
cool.
fives.
Yeah, it's just an
Really
iconic
cool.
bike. It's my third one. I absolutely love it.
What happened? You had somebody
yeah,
looking
just
at it.
been-
You were trying to sell it, right? What happened the other night?
Yeah, this kid came to look at it, but he was just kind of mesmerized
Yeah.
by the look. So I did a fair amount of decent job talking him out of it.
Had he not had one or anything similar?
He's 17 years old. He rides a. I mean, he might come by him if I did my
Yeah.
job.
That's
I
all
felt
you-
like I was like, maybe this isn't your ideal second
Yeah.
bike.
Yeah, no, that's
And
that's
we're about
actually
to get
really,
we're about to get into that
really
in
fair.
this
Yeah.
episode.
Well,
But,
but it was a
no, but
second
he was really
bike,
interested.
though? Like he already had.
Yeah,
some?
he owns a Yamaha 650 or something from the
Well,
70s
it's not
or
a
80s.
bad second bike, I guess. I mean,
No, I mean I sure wouldn't.
Yeah.
I would never
I
listen.
mean, it's
to
an
anybody who's
airhead,
17.
so
no,
Yeah.
he'll.
they have
He
a lot
was-
of
he liked
issues
it.
until you
He'll
get
ruin
it
it.
straight.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say they're easy to wrench on, but I gave it back to you with the forks completely jammed solid and not rideable. So maybe they're not that easy
you just
to
missed
wrench.
one thing.
So Max is gonna
Fine.
sell this thing when he hurt his leg, and I was like, "No, dude, let me at least get it running for you." And I did that part okay, but the forks were just toasted. I mean, absolutely gone. They were so sloppy and loose, and so I took them apart,
Yeah.
new seals,
Rotted.
bushings, the bumpers inside, like everything.
So they just weren't holding any
they were
fluid
just
or anything.
gone. All the bushings were shot.
It
They
was
were
toast.
Totally
It was
worn out.
yeah.
Oh.
The insides were rotted.
And I
Yeah.
I still don't know what I did, but I put them back together wrong somehow. Put them back on the bike, and they wouldn't move. I mean, I had a ratchet strap
They're
on them, and
frozen.
they would not compress. And I finally was like,
So was the-
"You got to have." We have this buddy Barry who does BMWs and stuff, and I'm like, "Okay, I think you got to have Barry fix this." I don't know what else to do. So
He found it pretty quick.
Good.
He took it apart and was like, "Oh yeah," he just put together one thing in the wrong place, and that
yeah,
was it.
Well, maybe we'll have Barry on and
Oh my
tell
gosh, that would
everyone
be
how he
That
fixed
would be
it.
an awesome episode.
Barry knows his shit, man. Because he's like a BMW
Yeah.
encyclopedia, that's for sure.
He is. He's real good.
Well, I know very little about old airheads.
But I feel like
Yeah.
that's a very good
Um,
example of my wrenching style, which is I am not afraid to take anything apart, but I can't necessarily put it back together correctly. And that's exactly what I did to Max.
You always get it at the end. I mean, I think you would have found
yeah,
it.
eventually, but
I've seen you totally dismantle things all the way down to the case is split and the frame sitting there, and you always somehow get it back together.
Usually.
Well, that's a huge part of wrenching is getting yourself into trouble.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And then trying and having
Well,
to
literally
get it back,
everything I've
back
learned
into
is from getting
place.
myself in that position. So,
Oh,
I feel like it's certainly
absolutely.
worthwhile. I don't know if that's the best way to learn for everybody, but it works for me.
That was my prime advice that I used to give, say, younger kids like wanting to get into wrenching,
Right.
building, whatever it is.
Just do it.
Is don't be afraid to
Yeah.
make mistakes, because I'm only a product of the mistakes I've made.
Yeah. No, I totally
and
agree
then
with that.
chose to be frustrated to learn from them.
What about? What was I going to ask you? Your GS as well. I know you're going to sell that too, right? Do you have any luck on that?
Yeah, I've got both of them for sale just because it's going to be probably another year before I
Yeah.
can ride again. And no luck. I mean, it's we're in
Well, the
January.
12
in
inches of
Colorado.
snow coming down right now is not helping.
Dude, it's dumping right now. It's just I posted them on like lightly on the free Facebook
Yeah.
marketplace and things
Right
like
on.
that. But I think
you guys
both
are in
bikes.
a totally different market
Oh,
than
Yeah,
me.
you can sell. I'm gonna ship them
it's
out to
crazy.
you, and you can sell.
It's
them for me.
nothing like back home, man. When we used to be able to buy bikes and flip them all the time, like the market here is like it only exists in the summer, and I
it's
only buy
seasonal,
stuff
yeah.
that I think I can sell online if I'm gonna sell it again, because locally it's just like it's not gonna work.
Yeah.
It's weird, yeah.
And I'm not in any sort of pinch or a hurry, so they'll just stay in my garage.
Right on.
On trickle chargers.
Well,
What about you, Evan? What do you
speaking
got
of
in your shop?
airheads, yeah, I'm working on a so a couple. What was it, like 2 weeks ago? Was it you or Billy? What, it was Max or Billy? Somebody found this airhead in Aspen, and I'd been wanting an airhead again, and it was a sweet 70s.
Where the wine
the
flows like
salmon
beer.
of Capistrano. so it was a 76 R90/6, which is I've never owned. I've had a lot of /7s, and I don't think I've ever owned a /6, and I'd always wanted one. It's kind of like my iconic airhead I wanted. I didn't really want a /5, especially after playing with Max's. It's just the /6 is kind of the sweet spot because I'm familiar with the /7s, and they're pretty similar. So anyways, I found a nice R90 or
That's with the casted valve covers,
well, I
right?
think they all do.
Yeah.
They were finned. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
They're cast aluminum, I think. With
They were like machined
I don't think they're
finned.
machined at all. It's
were
all cast.
these-
It's rough.
No, they're cast.
But they
Yeah,
all use
I'm-
those. I think
I'm
all the
not explaining
70s
it right.
ones use those.
Well, the 5s and 6s are
Well, those are the ones that
Almost.
they have. They call the peanut.
okay. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yep,
It's been
and
a
then
long
the sevens
time.
and
I'm sorry.
RTs and RSs that have that square
Yes,
with the
right.
lines
Yeah,
across
yeah,
them,
exactly.
That's why this was like
Um,
I think the sweet spot for me, because a lot of it is more similar to the /7, which I'm familiar with. It doesn't have the older forks like Max's /5 does, so I already know most of the stuff on this bike because I've done a bunch of the later ones. And it was cool. It's the Havana gold color. It's like root beer brown with gold pinstriping, which is ugly as shit, but awesome.
So
I love
pretty.
it.
Yeah.
And I sent a picture to my brother the other day, and he was like, "That's the ugliest motorcycle I've ever seen."
Fucking Ian.
But hey,
Don't even. We're not
I
getting going.
think I think we could discount his opinion because he has a wide glide. So.
Here's a wide glide.
So anyways, I drove up to Aspen and bought this thing, and
Yeah, that's-
and it was not as nice as the pictures looked. But Max, was it you or Billy who sent me the listing? One of you guys did.
I think Billy. I think we have that thread going. I think
So-
Billy.
Yeah,
sent it.
I think you're right. So anyways, Max and Billy and I keep up on airhead stuff, and so anyways, Billy, one of our buddies, found this, and I was bored and was like, all right, I'll drive up there. So I drove up to Aspen, and as you know, 4+ hour drive, and I get up there, and it was not as nice as I hoped, but it was okay, and it was a reasonable price, and it and what's cool about it is it's a 26,000 mile bike, so it's real low miles, and it just wasn't stored well, but it's a good, it runs perfectly and it sounds great and all that. So anyways, it had a fairing on it, big ugly Luftmeister fairing, copy of a Windjammer, just super ugly. So I drug it home, tore that
Gotta
off,
love the
and
Windjammers.
I already tore it apart. And my buddies at Euromoto Electrics down in Denver, who do Airhead parts and charging systems and stuff, sent me a big box of stuff for it. So it's going to be cool, man.
Sweet. Go, Matt.
Yeah, Matt's the man.
Yeah.
So it's going to turn out good. It's going to be a sweet bike. So that's what I've been working on, is getting that thing stripped down. And I started filming some stuff. I'm actually going to record like a lot of YouTube stuff for my YouTube channel, like how to do various jobs on it, because the advertising revenue should pay for the time, I think, to do that. So
Nice.
yeah, so that's the plan right now.
Well, I'm happy that you've gone away from Moto Guzzi's.
I always will like Moto Guzzi's,
Old
but
Moto Guzzi's.
they're just so clunky. It's like riding
I-
like riding a tractor, man. It's just like doesn't hold up.
They are so just dramatic motorcycles.
That's
I was wondering
Yeah.
what adjective you were going to pull out there. I'm like,
but that's the right
"And?"
word.
Yes.
That's the right word for it. They are. Yeah, no, that thing's long gone. It turned out really nice, that one I rebuilt, but it's in Texas somewhere now, and
Yeah.
sold in like 5 minutes. It was
Well,
nothing to get rid of it.
I knew you when you were having headaches over the
Yeah.
Ambassador.
No, that was an Eldorado, I think. It was an 850.
No, it was definitely a
It was
Ambassador.
All right. Well, I don't know. Whatever. All I remember.
Well, I mean, you've had
all I
many since
remember
then.
of that motorcycle was holding a piston on the freeway at 80 miles an hour and blowing a hole in the crankcase and just pissing oil everywhere, all over, and almost dumping that bike on the freeway.
Man.
Oh my
Yes.
gosh.
Well, when I first met you, which was probably 8-9 years ago, something like that, you were restoring a Moto Guzzi
Yeah, that was the
Ambassador.
And restoring
And,
is a very
found-
generous
I was-
term
I-
to what I was
Yeah,
doing.
I was there when you found out that you had to the
Yeah.
nickel plating, whatever they line them with,
Yeah,
was
never
done.
fixed that.
And
Actually,
no-
that might have
yeah.
been. That's probably
Well.
what caused it to blow up. To be honest, well, I was broke as shit. I could barely afford the bike, let alone a new top end on that thing. So it was run it till it's
yeah,
done.
exactly. It was like $1,200
that's
or
it.
something like that just
So
to
it
reline it.
still is.
and
I did the
then-
one on this Ambassador I built last year, and they stopped making top end
Mhm.
kits for it. So the only option was to send out the cylinders for Nickel plating. That was $700 or something.
nickel
Just for
sole,
the
that's
plating
right,
job,
yeah.
and then I had to buy rings, and nobody makes pistons anymore. Like parts are getting hard for those things.
Mhm.
They're definitely
Unless you machine the cylinders down
yes.
and
That's the
sleeve
other
it,
option.
then you can put a
Iron
traditional.
sleeving in 'em and,
Yeah.
But I couldn't find anybody to. I know places will, but I didn't want to spend days
Well.
hunting a place to do that job.
Yeah, who would want to touch
Yeah.
those?
Whatever. Bike sold. Now I have an Airhead and an old Triumph. Oh, and I finally got the Triumph broken in. I took it riding yesterday before the storm and got some miles on the new top end. So I've got a 77 T140.
Yes.
That's sweet, and I've been working on that thing. So
Oh, that's
Think it's
awesome. I've built a couple
I'm
of
loving
those.
Triumphs. They're rad. It's just funny because they are.
Mhm.
I always like kind of thought they were like great motorcycles, and our buddy Billy is obsessed with them. So I always thought they were just like the best old bikes in the world till I work on one. They're as shitty
No, they're
as 70s shovel
dogs.
heads. I mean,
Yeah.
100%.
Oh, no. That is 100% a
They're
great analogy.
the same amount of crap. I mean, it's
They-
unbelievable. They are not good motorcycles.
Well, the same tech as well. It's the same amount
Yeah.
of technology that's built
I was so
into
surprised when I got into that, and I was just like, I was expecting this to be awesome, and then coming from like Airheads,
No.
which are well thought out, well engineered, everything makes
Yeah.
sense,
Mhm.
and then you work on a Triumph, and it's just like, this is the shittiest motorcycle I have ever touched.
Yeah. When you
So
sort
bad.
out, when you get an old Beamer
Yeah, you don't
sorted
touch it
out,
again.
I mean,
You
they
just-
last.
Yeah,
You don't touch it again
Mm-hmm.
for every 12, 15,000 miles for the valves
Yep.
or whatever. But otherwise, yeah, they just go and go. Especially if you ride them and you don't let them
yes,
sit. Then they
right.
just
Yeah.
have a
Well,
great existence.
the thing with older Triumphs were if you got a good one that doesn't leak oil, brand new, the old saying was like, well, yours must have been made
Yeah.
on a Tuesday.
Judging by the oil, mine was made on
Because-
a Friday, and it's been completely resealed, and it's still leaking. So
Yeah, there's a story behind that too. Maybe we'll get into
you
it
know,
if we do another.
I'd
say,
love to get
old Triumphs
Billy on
episode.
here and talk. This guy's like a Triumph encyclopedia. He would tell us all about him.
He is, man. He's got some of the nicest
Yeah.
Triumphs I've ever seen.
Yeah,
he
rides
rides
the
them
hell
too.
out of
They're
them.
not just
Yeah.
garage queens.
All right, okay. You know what? We'll waste forever talking about this. Let's get into our topic
Yeah,
tonight.
exactly.
Yeah.
We can probably give ourselves some allowance
it's
on
okay.
the first
It's okay.
what's in the
It
shop.
was good though. We had some good stuff. All right, let's talk about our first
Yeah.
topic tonight. We're talking about our first real topic for this show, which is buying your first motorcycle. So I think this will probably be interesting and appeal to a lot of people. And I think we do want to clarify we're talking about buying a motorcycle that you're looking to ride.
You
Yes,
plan
this
to
is not
ride.
a project.
Yeah.
Not
Straight
a
off.
builder.
Not a project, not a donor bike.
Yeah, so there's a lot to think about, especially if you're buying your first bike or you're buying your 100th bike. Like, you probably...
I was about to say some of this will continue on as you progress into your motorcycle life.
for sure.
Yeah, good
Yeah.
foundation. Yeah.
Yeah, because knowing your skill level will dramatically
Yeah.
increase by your first bike to your 15th bike. So
Yeah.
but
and
if
also what category of bike that you're actually looking at too.
yeah.
Well,
Like
I
jumping
always
into
think that's so
an
weird
enduro.
now because, it's like you watch... I always think it's funny, like you watch on any Sunday and you see Steve McQueen ripping around on a Triumph with like the fender taken off or something. And it's like these dudes, there didn't used to be all these bikes. There was just a motorcycle. And then you got a motorcycle and you did
Yeah.
whatever you wanted on it. Right?
That did
and
everything.
And now we're so spoiled that it's like you couldn't think about riding your street bike on a dirt road or something, because it's not a dual sport or whatever.
I know.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you certainly can, but
Yeah, I was just out at the Triumph dealership today. They had their whatever it's called, not a grand opening, but the spring when they bring out all the new bikes and
Yeah.
put them on there. And I was flummoxed on how many styles of bikes there are. You just,
did they have that new
you can go, and that's just
new
Triumph.
Scrambler
Yeah.
or adventure bike or whatever
Well-
it was out?
Yeah, they've got the Street Tiger, they've got the Dirt Tiger, they've got the new Street, the new Speed Triple.
Isn't there some
Cafe.
new Scrambler
And
or
then-
something that's a Bonneville type, but it's off
There's
road?
there's just so many, and that's just
I
Triumph.
have not paid
Maybe I'm thinking
attention
of the
to
Ducati.
new bikes in
Yeah.
a
Well,
lot
I
of
don't ever
years.
actually ever go out there. I just went out there because my buddy was like, "Yeah, it's their spring opening or something." I was like, "Oh, I'll go check." There's nothing for me there. Stuff is so
Yeah.
expensive. But-
What's a new Triumph
Yeah.
cost these days? 10 grand?
Oh my god, dude! Like the
14.
the new Speed Triple was 19, I think.
That's
No
like
way.
Dude,
That's
the
BM
BMWs were 26. I know.
Jeez.
It's insane.
That was like a top of the line Honda Accord.
yeah, you could buy a car right now.
I'll stick with my multiple crappy old motorcycles then for that.
It's absolutely.
Yeah, no.
Well, that's just again, that goes into some of the stuff that we are not to talk
Well,
about.
think of it this way: you can buy the best motorcycle that's ever been made new for $9,500,
But I'm
Well,
interested
maybe-
to see what you put
maybe
into that
12.
category.
or I think it's
What is
actually
it?
13. Oh, the Husky
Okay,
701
but
Supermoto.
best for who? I mean,
that's the best
I
bike
agree that
ever
might-
made.
I agree that's the best for
Absolutely.
you, but
Absolutely.
okay, but Joe Dirt buying his first bike is not going to hop on a Husky wheelie
No,
monster.
but I would never recommend someone spending more than $2,000 for their
correct.
first bike. Well,
Okay, but
nowadays,
that actually brings us to a
maybe
really important point
$3,500.
is with this topic, we say buying your first motorcycle. So we're literally talking about guy with no riding experience, right? I mean, my notes here say buying your
Yes.
first
Yeah.
motorcycle.
Street riding.
Street, yeah, but say you have to devise which avenue you're taking. But if we're sticking with the street,
So not
that
first in the
eliminates-
category, like first motorcycle.
Yeah, not first dirt bike or whatever, because the first bike for the street that you plan on taking, say, to high school.
yeah.
If you're so
Okay,
fortunate,
okay,
that you
let's
have a
do
cool
this.
mom.
I got a great idea.
Or
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
Everybody's gonna say with no commentary. Say the exact bike
Best
you would
bike?
recommend for somebody's first street bike. I already got mine in my head.
okay. Oh, I
know
already
mine
got it. I got it.
Okay, you ready?
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna go. Okay, I think it's a Honda Nighthawk, like 750 Nighthawk.
No,
Suzuki SV 650.
that was mine.
Oh, okay.
Hey.
Yeah.
No, you got
That
out.
was
Okay,
mine.
I
You're
actually
out.
I would agree with you. I didn't think of an SV. That's excellent recommendation. I only say that because I
Yeah,
had
well-balanced.
one $1,000 motorcycle. a red Nighthawk with like 25,000 miles on it and late 80s or something. And it was just excellent. It was like the best bike I could have had for learning to ride on the street, the freeway, like everything. I thought it was awesome. Dropped it a couple times, didn't care.
I think one thing in common
04 and earlier though, because that was the carbureted.
This was like
still
89 or 90 or something. I don't remember. It was
they brought the SV 650s back now, but
no, I
was going to say one thing that we had in common there was the displacement. Nobody shouted out CBR 1000, and I think that's something to be really mindful and respectful of is on your first bike. You want to enjoy. You want to enjoy your first bike. You don't want to be scared. You don't want it to get ahead of you or feel out of sorts on it. You want to just enjoy while you're learning a whole nother view of the road.
And there's a lot.
I know.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say over in other countries, I think it's still in Europe, your license goes in
per
tiers.
CC.
Like you can't even buy anything but a 250. I mean, the Honda Rebel 250 is a great entry level bike. If in all sense of I mean, it's going to be slow if you're a large guy, but if you're anything average, like it'll still do 70. It's light. You can tip it over and pick it up.
Wait, did you say that was a bike?
Yeah, it's a bike. My ex-wife had one. I mean, I rode that thing.
Whitney had a Virago 250, whatever.
Virago, yeah. There's a bunch of them out there.
Yeah.
Should I also state that here, all of us here on All Wheels Podcast recommend that everybody takes the safety course and gets their
I did.
license
I'd been
that way.
riding for 2 years, I think, when I went back and did that, only to get my mom off my back in college because she was like bitching so much about me riding.
Yeah.
So I went and took the MSF course. And I was just whining the whole time, like, this is a waste of time. I've been riding for a year or two. I know what I'm doing. I learned so much. And I know 1,000% what I learned in that class has saved my life a couple times on a motorcycle. I have no doubt about that. So I always recommend it 100%.
So be safe
Well,
out
I
there.
can't-
Take the
Yeah,
MSF course.
there's totally should.
I'm not. Yeah, I mean, I recommend it, and I do recommend it to people, but I was not one of those people that did that.
It wasn't even around when I was a kid. There was no MSF course.
Yeah.
We just don't hit
Well,
the curb
when I
and
started
don't hit the
riding, it
tree.
was definitely around. For me, it was just. I don't think at first I really appreciated or respected what I was getting myself into. Like the first time I rode a motorcycle is the one that I bought
What
that
was it?
day. It was a 81. No. Yeah, 81 Honda CB750
yeah, I
dual
rode 'em.
overhead.
Good bike.
Sweet.
And I think I bought it running, but I didn't even ride it then. I did truck it back home, and then spent like 2 weeks like building. That was my first cafe bike I built.
Nice.
Well, I think there's
Probably my one of two cafe bikes I've ever built in my career, even though other people will say different. But in my first day to work, I rode it and I was like, okay,
a little
shit.
faster than I thought.
I have to figure out how to actually ride this thing.
Well, I think there's, like we were talking about earlier, small displacement bikes or whatever. It doesn't matter what it is, but there is a lot to be said for riding a bike that you might initially consider underpowered. Because if you come up and get comfortable on that thing, there's a lot to be said for being able to ride the shit out of something that the bike itself might be under your skill level, but you can push it pretty hard. And then you start, I think you work on your skills a lot better that way rather than trying to like hold on to a bike way outside of your skill level. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean,
well,
anybody
here's the
can
thing.
twist a throttle and do 100. I mean,
Well, here's the thing where the deception of CCs, I believe, at least comes in, is in my experience, which has been 13, 14 years of riding, the smaller in CC you go, the more likely you're able to get yourself into trouble because you don't respect it as much as you should, I think. And this is talking like pit bike stuff, where I've hurt myself more on pit bikes, like 50cc, like motorcycles, more than I have on much bigger bikes, or even a little bit bigger of a bike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There I have two, but I was drunk every
um,
time. I think I was on a 50.
You know what?
I
Maybe
guarantee you,
that was.
if you're not drunk on a 50, you're not doing it right.
Yeah, there was something that I read back in the mid 2000s where something like 85% or a really high percentage of motorcycle deaths were males 18 to 25 on 1,000cc bikes or bigger.
Yeah.
Well,
And that
yeah,
was
makes
way
total
more than
sense.
Harley guys without helmets. Like that was the
Yeah,
deal.
I
It
believe
was,
that.
or it might have even been 750 cc's and above, but it was basically
Right.
saying 19-year-old kids buying sport bikes. That's how you're gonna
Yeah.
kill yourself before anything else. And that was, I mean, that's 15 years ago now, but I remember thinking that it was a huge percentage.
I'm sure
of
that's accurate.
motorcycle
Yeah.
deaths.
Oh, absolutely.
No, for sure.
But I
Yeah, I
think
guess
going
what I
back
was
to-
saying is you're more likely to hurt yourself smaller CCs, but you're definitely more likely
Yeah,
to
that's
kill
a good way to
yourself
put
in
it. That's a
larger
good way to put it.
CCs.
Yeah. Well, people don't realize when you're hauling ass on a bike, it's hard to turn it. It's hard to pull. You know, you watch MotoGP; those guys are hanging off the bike. That's because the bike
Yeah, it
wants
takes
to
a
stay
lot
upright.
of skill
Takes a
to
lot.
just
And
get
so-
to that point.
You hammer your bike down the freeway. You're like, I'm having so much fun at 125 miles an hour, and then a car's
Yeah.
in your way. You can't just turn. You have to.
No,
That bike.
Yeah,
the
you're
inertia is carrying
almost
that bike.
dragging
Right.
lead just
Oh,
to
man.
Right.
get around it.
So,
Well, I think
Anyway.
the main
All right.
the main point of
Yeah.
starting the segment is that when you're trying
Yeah.
to figure out a first bike, I think like our note here says, like, what are you asking the bike to do? What do you need and want from it? And a lot of that goes into figuring out like just how new are you? It's your first motorcycle, okay, but have you ridden it all? What CC size is right for you?
Yeah.
What type of bike or cruiser? There's lots of cool smaller sport type bikes like the small Ninjas, you know, like the Honda makes a CB
Well, yeah,
something
the
300. Like, there's
CBR.
all sorts
Yeah.
of cool
Yeah.
options for it. So you don't need to like exclude yourself from a sport category if you don't want to, but
Mm-hmm.
be smart about what you buy, I think is the main thing.
Yeah.
don't be-
Well,
don't
and
be-
also
oh, go ahead.
the enduro.
Yeah, those are
category,
awesome.
I think is a great.
Dude, a KLR 650 is a
like,
great
starter.
first bike for anybody.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Your
Yeah.
your KLR 650 was the first
Yeah,
one
it was
I rode
awesome.
and fell
Great
in
bike.
love with it. And I was already a veteran rider at that point too. It's similar to say like the SV 650, where it's if you respect any bike, which you should, it's not something that's gonna freak you out, but it could
Yeah.
also get up and go if you if you
It's
can't
tried
if you
and
That
want
true.
it
thing
to.
reliable.
is excellent. That's like the Swiss Army knife of motorcycles. That thing is.
And
It
it's a
is.
highway. It's a highway
Yeah.
enduro bike
I rode
too.
that thing, that black KLR that
which-
you're talking about, Polito, and I rode those things from San Diego to Washington and back. I mean, that was awesome.
And all you did, I think, was put a windscreen
Yeah, I
on
put
it
a
or something like
windshield
that,
and
that was
did
about
the,
it.
the cam chain or cam tension or whatever problem it has, fixed that,
Yeah.
Like fix.
and
yeah.
a couple other minor things. Not much. It was an awesome bike.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of
Well,
our
I think
the
we're-
bullet points we're about to bump into is what is your budget, and I think that also dictates. You know, if you're just past the class and you're a 50-year-old lawyer, you know, heading to Triumph and spending $12,000 on a fully warranted brand new
Yeah.
bike, you know, that'll be a different scenario than a 20-year-old college kid who wants to get into
Well, to
riding.
be honest, even in that
But they do
situation, I
share-
wouldn't recommend it. You still, even if you have the money, you don't want to go drive your nice bike. You know, like
Yeah,
even then
exactly.
go cheap.
Yeah, I would agree. You know what I was going to say is they the things that you know they both have in common is you know you want to be able to you just don't want to worry about the bike. And I'm just saying this logistically. It doesn't mean that's what I did or probably what either of you did. But if you're smart, unlike us, you want the bike to brake well and you want the blinkers to work.
Yeah.
And you want it to steer nice and you want the tires to be good. That way, as you're learning life on the road, you're not also worried about shitty carburetors that are out of balance and it won't, you know, your RPMs are stuck up
Yeah.
because the carbs
Yeah.
need to be rebuilt. You know, if you have that in mind, if you are like, oh, I'm going to get this bike knowing, kind of like you did, Brady, I'm going to buy this bike to rebuild it and cafe it or not. But if you're just, what are you asking your bike to
Right.
do, and what is your budget? Again, going back to that, like the SV 650, it's just a bulletproof,
I'll
light,
agree with that. That's awesome.
agile,
choice.
easy going bike.
Torquey
Yeah,
also.
it's a twin, which is
Yeah.
nice.
90
it's
degree
poor
twin.
man's
So
Ducati,
it's
man. They're
Suzuki. Yeah, Suzuki's
Poor man, yeah.
They're great bikes.
take on
Yeah.
the Ducati Monster
Yeah.
naked
And then-
bike.
And then, of course,
but they did it better.
Probably.
just going to look at the bike and throwing a leg over
Yeah,
the bike.
that's important.
Because if you're 6'4" versus 5'8",
Right.
you
Yeah.
may
So-
not fit on an
Yeah.
SV 650.
Well, I really like Brady
Yeah,
has a note here
exactly.
in the notes that I think is key. He said, "Don't get what you think is cool or what your friends want or have," and that's honestly
Oh, God, I needed that.
Absolutely. That's
I needed that
excellent
lesson
point.
bad.
And that would
Yeah.
keep a lot
It
of
is a
people
great
away from
point.
sport bikes. That okay. This is
well, also keeps a lot of people away from Sportsters.
well, Sportsters for a
'Cause-
first bike. I don't know. It's not a horrible idea, is it?
Yeah.
Oh no! Wait, what do you?
Talking about.
I would recommend it.
It's a shitty first bike, an absolute
Okay,
shitty first bike.
It probably is
Okay,
not your best
qual-
choice.
no,
It doesn't
it's not.
handle
No.
It's
super
not,
great.
but it's manageable.
And it destroys it. They suck. I love them to death. I honestly love them to death.
We here at
But
All Wheels
they
Podcast are
suck.
not biased
No,
on
no.
motorcycles.
Oh, but I feel like you're saying that you're coming
No,
from
I've
the same
built.
place.
I've had a few.
I've had
like,
Sportsters. I love my '90s Harleys. They're shit
Yeah.
motorcycles, but they are awesome.
There's a ton of people that would definitely disagree with you and tell you it's the best bike they've
Yeah.
ever owned.
No,
I know a
it's
ton
the
of
best
people that
motor.
still-
It's
still ride 'em.
it's the best motorcycle that Harley has ever come out with, and
Okay,
still
I'm
to this
sorry,
day.
I beg
Well.
to differ. That's not accurate. That's
We'll just
All
agree
right,
to disagree
well,
on
talk
that one.
about your
no.
FXRs.
I'm
and-
an Evo Dyna guy. I'm not an FXR guy. My sweet spot is '90s is like late '90s Dynas. I think they've earned it.
Yeah.
They're great bikes. But okay, we could argue.
Okay,
argue.
no, you know what?
That's
You know
what
what?
we
You're
could argue
there.
about
You're
this
right.
forever.
You're right.
Right.
You're right. For me,
Right.
the Sportster's the best because I like things small, shorter wheelbase, something you
Yep.
can actually
Yeah,
throw around.
I think they're good.
if you can.
And motorcycling is it's an enjoyment. It's like an elective. So, if that's what really calls
Yeah.
to you, if you go sit on a Harley and you fire it up and you're just like, oh my God, this feels so amazing, then that's the route that you'll probably take. You're not gonna, if you really like that style, you're not gonna go pick up a 450 Honda Rebel
Shadow.
or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just gonna be.
And not saying the
motorcycles are like-
Shadow's a bad.
No, but I
bad
think
vehicle.
this is why that point is so
But-
important is that it's really up to you. Like one of the biggest turnoffs I have with motorcycling is like people who are like crazy gatekeepers about their particular brand, and like Harley guys are probably the typical like definition of that. But there's all sorts
Well,
of people
yeah.
that do
They
that.
have an agenda.
Yeah,
or
and
a
it's just
bias.
honestly
Well,
Which-
BMW guys are
yeah,
barely
true,
better.
true. And I feel like I bridge the
You're
gap
probably
pretty
talking
well.
about
So
the
does
purists.
Max. Like we both love BMWs and Harleys. I like Triumphs. I've had sport bikes. I like everything.
Yeah.
And it really annoys me when you kick somebody out of riding or discourage them or whatever because they're not doing it the way you think is cool. I mean, give me a break. There's nothing that
Yeah.
makes me pissed off
Yeah.
quicker than that. Like,
Yeah.
Well, here's something where I don't discriminate, and I know my previous words probably doesn't help my,
Yeah,
my
no, they
claim
didn't.
right now, but anything on two wheels, you can find a reason to have
Yeah.
fun on it. And I
like that.
Well said.
that's definitely my motto.
Yeah.
Not motto, but like that's my view. The smallest CC, the biggest super bike, the heaviest beast, like it's still, you can find a reason to
yeah,
have fun
agreed.
on it.
Yeah.
And that I think comes down to just the feeling you have on two wheels. And that's really what it comes down to is no matter how you get to or what you're on with two wheels, unless you're fearful and terrified, which is healthy
Yeah.
also, to have a healthy fear of it, but not have it own you or run how you ride it, you will find a reason or find a way to have fun on two wheels.
I agree with that.
And so I agree or recommend everyone to at least give it a try. But
take the time.
Some people should.
I feel like
I
we
think
talked
too,
about, set your budget, but then take the time to figure out what it is that falls into that and that makes the most sense for you.
Mm-hmm.
But listen, okay.
Well, that's a great question. I was just going to say, so let's just say now you've got a guy that has passed the MSF and he's got his budget and he knows what kind of bike. I'd put it out to you guys. Now, where do you go? Where would you recommend people go to find their first bike?
Well, hang on one sec. I want to tell a story really quick because it applies to the previous point.
No, we're running out of time. I'm sorry.
Okay, no, it is, and we're going right back to that. But wait, real.
Okay,
let's
back
take
off
1
the
second.
mic.
We were talking about don't buy what your friends think is cool or whatever. So instantly, this just illustrates this really well. I sold the first new bike I ever bought was a 07 GSXR 600. I bought it brand new in college. I rode it for a year, 2 years, something like that. And then I sold it, and I sold it to this dude that bought it, didn't know how to ride. And he said, he came, paid for it, said, I'm taking the MSF class or whatever. I'll come back and pick it up in a couple of days. Okay. I had to pay it off and get the title. So I did. He came back. Whole crew of buddies were like stunter sport bike guys. They show up at my house. His buddies are literally doing wheelies and stoppies in my street, in my driveway, ripping around all over the place. And I told this, I told this guy, I'm not kidding. It was like Nitro Circus showed up in front of my house. And I told this dude, I was just like, hey man, like I'll give you your money back if you want. Like I'd probably recommend you don't buy this bike. And he said no.
Yeah.
His buddy rode it home. And I said, okay, well, no problem. And I'm like, I'll call you in a week or two when I get the title in the mail. So I got the title in the mail, called him. He shows up to pick it up, comes into my house on crutches, road rash everywhere. And I'm just looking at him like, oh my God. I'm like, the bike's gone, isn't it? And he's like, yeah. He was riding with those dudes, been riding it for 2 weeks, didn't know what he was doing, and clipped a Corvette going like 90 on the freeway, trying to keep up with this whole crew, and went down hard on the freeway, totaled the bike, broke his leg, like rash everywhere, and luckily he survived. He probably was just fine. And I just thinking like, man, that sucks. Like I told him not to do it, but whatever, it's not my responsibility. But it's just a good point. It illustrates you don't necessarily do it just because your buddies are doing it, right? So anyways,
well, and I think the basis of that question is or not necessarily question, but comment was, think about what you like to do with a motorcycle, what you think about you would like to do with a motorcycle. So if you want to say go fast, start with something in that genre of possibility of going fast, like a Ninja 250, like an older Ninja 250. If you want to cruise and have a loud motorcycle, and then start with like a sporty, older, like 90s, which honestly, like those things go for like 10 grand now, which is fun.
Well,
to me.
but I feel like the internet's such a ridiculous tool now. Like you can find, it's so easy to do research now that you couldn't do before. Like you can easily dial in on like what makes the most sense. And you'll find a community on Facebook groups or a forum or whatever that dials into the exact bike you're looking at. So it is not hard.
Yeah, don't be afraid to join a forum and post a lot of questions like, hey, I'm looking at this. What can I expect? What's the maintenance like? What will I need to do? What's something, you can do the maintenance at home versus, if you get a Ducati and you have to do valves at the deal, you can just, there's a lot of research you can do now from your
I really
office.
think the Facebook groups are the best part of, I hate Facebook, but the groups are insane. It's replaced forums.
Yeah.
It is the best place to go get vehicle specific like answers or reviews or ask questions or whatever. It's really, really crazy how good that is. And it kind of makes up for some of how bad Facebook is otherwise, I think. So.
Yeah. Well, I honestly have not been on Facebook
You're
in
not
15 something years.
Oh, good for you.
And that's not like not like a thing.
No,
it's just
it's. I feel like
I
it's a
haven't.
tool now for me. I don't really like it too much otherwise. Well, like Max said, like you gotta. What did you say? You were talking about budget and where to go.
Well,
find
yeah, I
this
was just
stuff, right?
we had now. What's the best place to go looking for a bike?
Well, I hate to say
So
it talking about Facebook, but I'm not trying to plug them. But Facebook
Right.
Marketplace, I know you and I have bought tons of bikes
Yep.
and stuff off Facebook Marketplace.
Yep.
It's kind of taken over Craigslist.
Craigslist.
It's almost eclipsed
Yeah.
it as like the place to go for good deals lately.
Well, I know just because Craigslist put the $5 charge down,
Yeah.
and people feel like it's now they have to give away their second born child. It's like it's just $5.
Honestly,
for God's
but
sakes.
it weeded out a ton of crap though. Like I used to think it was bad.
It sure
It's
did.
not
Now
bad.
there's just not a lot.
Well, that's
on
good.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't been on Craigslist and, like I said, Facebook Marketplace. I've heard a lot about it, but I haven't been
Yeah.
looking for a motorcycle or car
Yeah.
really in a good while. So
going
that's
to
where
your
I'm going to
local-
lean on you guys more.
Well,
Going to your local dealership is always good. They often have a used selection of bikes, or there'll be maybe something in your town that just specializes in used bikes, where you'll be able to go sit on a Ninja 300 and go sit on a
that's a
Harley
good point.
Sportster.
Even if you don't buy there, it's the best place to find a bunch of
Absolutely.
stuff in one
Yeah.
place and see what
Yeah.
fits you.
and once
Mm-hmm.
and once you have your
Absolutely.
MSF, you have the M endorsement, you can go. I mean, legally, they'll
Right.
let you ride if you feel
Well, and
comfortable.
for if you're
taking
doing
some different test
searching,
bike
a couple
rides.
tips I'll think about because I've been buying crap on Craigslist for years. There's one thing on Craigslist is if you narrow down like a particular year or a year range or something you're looking for, you can search Craigslist by a year. Like say you want to look at bikes in the 70s, you can type in like
Like a
197
spectrum of
and then
years,
use
yeah.
the star on your keyboard. And it'll show you everything that had 197 in it. So it'll show you everything from 1970 to 1979. So that's useful if you're like
Mm-hmm.
identifying a year range. The other thing,
well, that's nice. I didn't know.
yeah, no, it works well. It's cool. You can also
Yeah.
do search. What's it called? Search Tempest. Don't you use that sometimes, Max?
Yeah, Tempest.
So
yeah.
that lets you search a whole range of Craigslist sites. So you can put in like your category motorcycles or whatever, and then you can set it to search for like 600 miles or whatever, and it'll search all the local Craigslist sites for the whole range you want. So that's pretty useful too. Then it actually doesn't search them, but it gives you the link to open the local Craigslist with the search terms already put in it. So that's pretty useful as well. But again, you got to pretty much narrow down like somehow what you're looking for. It's not going to be useful for just browsing everything.
Well,
I just tried your 197 star and it worked
Yeah,
great.
I do
had
that
no
like
idea.
once a day. I search Craigslist 196, 197, look at cars and bikes in 60s, 70s, 80s just to see what's old cool stuff pops up. Sometimes there's great stuff.
The only time I use Craigslist now, it's mostly for vehicles now at least, is 1975 or earlier. And then I set like a price minimum at, or price maximum at like 5,000, and then a minimum at like 1,000. And that weeds out a lot
Yeah,
of the
that's
$1 and $100.
So the
or
problem
whatever.
I've noticed
call,
with
yeah.
that is if
But-
you use the year, the 19, whatever it is, if you use the year range selector in Craigslist, that relies on the people having entered that in the year field when they set up the ad. So sometimes people don't do that
Okay.
and they only put the year in the title. So in that case, if you use the 196 star or 197 star, it searches the title words instead of people filling out the year fields correctly. You'll see sometimes people don't bother to
Gotcha.
enter all the crap in the Craigslist ad. They don't enter it's
Gotcha.
a gas motor and it's an automatic transmission and it's year 1971. If they don't enter that stuff, the title can sometimes catch stuff that other people miss, and get a deal because nobody else found it that way.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, whatever. Sometimes it pulls up stuff.
Yeah. Well, I don't look for vehicles or motorcycles as much as you guys. Or
I
at
always
least
look
you
for
haven't.
crap to buy
Um,
and
but-
sell. When I'm
Always.
bored. When
Well,
I'm bored,
I've
it's
got
search
I've got
Craigslist.
projects already.
Yeah. Well, no, I do too.
Yeah,
I
you're
sure
already
do.
doing
I've
cool
got
shit.
4 or 5 bikes sitting around in an old car. And way too much crap to buy more, but
The only thing I think we should move on from this. I mean, I think most people looking for a motorcycle, they know
yeah,
the ways.
yeah.
Yeah.
But another thing that some people may not even look into is family and friends. So this is something I wrote that specifically in the notes for. I had a good buddy that did. He had a business where he would go into like foreclosures, and the bank or whatever would hire him to come in and just clear the house out, and then he would just auction off everything.
Nice.
So it was like, and he would call me all the time with like, hey, there's a motorcycle here. He'd send me a photo, like, do you want it? I mean, that's a very specific friend or family member, but there's also potential like friends or family members or family members of friends that have a motorcycle that's laying around.
No,
well, I guess that's
that's
probably worth
a
more
good
on
point, though. It's
projects
always
than-
worth saying. It's always worth telling. I'm not saying you run around saying, I ride motorcycles, but if people
putting it
know
out,
and they
yeah.
don't know where to sell it, they might come to you. That's how I ended up with that panhead I had. A neighbor was,
Oh, wow.
her husband died. This was 13 years ago or something. And her husband died. He had a panhead sitting in his backyard, and he had told my neighbor, it was his brother-in-law or something, I forget. And anyways, they told my dad, and I was in San Diego. My dad was in 2 hours away, and he said, hey, there's this old Harley up here, and they don't know what to do with it. Do you want it? And I'm like, yeah, what is it? And I called.
Yes.
It just said old Harley. Didn't know anything. I called. It was a first-year electric glide, so it was like a 64. It was a pan.
Oh,
It had shovel
wow.
heads on it, but it was an original pan. And I bought it for $1,500. It was ridiculous. It didn't. It was so far gone. It needed 10 grand thrown at it to fix. But I sold it again for $9
But
grand.
it'd be a $40,000 bar or bike if.
Well, I
you-
made so much money on the thing.
if
I
you
didn't do
put the
anything.
10
I
into
looked at
it.
it, took it apart, realized, oh my God, I don't have the funds to rebuild this bike. Put it back together and sold it and made like $8 grand on it. It was absurd. But it was all because my dad knew I liked motorcycles. He talked to a neighbor who knew they didn't know anybody who liked motorcycles. The word went through and I got the call. I was like, it was a steal. So anyways, not like that's really a plan, but it's certainly
It's not
No,
really
it's not realistic,
realistic,
but it can happen.
to everyone too. Yeah.
so.
Shoot, we're way.
Well, I think we've covered.
out of
Well, I
the-
think we could easily plan ahead for the next one, and now like maybe the next time we talk about, let's say you've now picked your bike, you know what you want. Now you're going to look at it. What things do you want to look specifically on the bike you are about to purchase?
Yeah.
And we could talk about that next time.
What time do
We're
we got
running
right
57 minutes right now. I think we can cover the stuff to inspect.
Okay.
This would be another 10 minutes, and we should
It's
be
pretty
We should be
quick.
good here.
Yeah. All right.
Right before that, what's each of our? It shouldn't take more than a couple minutes. What's each of our top 3 first bikes that you would suggest to anyone?
Top 3.
In like just all different ranges too. I'll start it
go.
off if you
Go.
like. First one, like Max and I agreed on, is SV 650.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The early 2000s ones I would
Yep.
suggest. Second would be Honda XLR 650.
Yeah. The XL's like the street
and then the-
model. What are you talking about? The
XL,
more
not
street
XLR,
model.
sorry.
Yeah.
XL 650.
XL.
That's an
yeah.
excellent dual sport. That's more street
Oh,
oriented.
absolutely. And it's geared to where you can actually take it
for
on the
sure.
highway
That's a
too.
great bike.
And then I almost don't want to recommend anything earlier than, I mean, even some 90s bikes are shit.
Okay, what do you got?
Fuck, it's another enduro bike, if anything. Do you know what? As much shit as I talked about it, a Triumph Bonneville. The newer
like-
Triumph Bonnevilles.
Yeah, the
the
modern
2000 plus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, I can go
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
That's not a bad recommendation at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's awesome.
They
I
are
think-
solid.
I think I would say you kind of need to know. You need to know yourself a little bit. if we have a gal friend of ours that got a bike, and the worst thing you can ever do to a bike is leave it sitting. So if you're not going to ride it that
Absolutely.
often, then I think a fuel injected bike is way better than a carbureted, because gas these days will just varnish and you'll be pulling carbs. So I think a fuel injected, any mid-size, like a SV650 or the Harley new
But
750
SVs were carbureted in the early
bikes.
2000s for sure. I had an 01. It was carb.
Yeah, but they turned to fuel injection like
05,
07.
I think.
05,
Was
yeah.
it 07?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's when they went to the square frames.
I think you're right. No, I think you're right.
I think that's what I would probably recommend to most folks. I would definitely say the KLR or the XL 650. Both those bikes are really manageable and reliable, and it does allow you to get into some cool like dirt road camping and adventure riding, as well as 55, 65 miles an hour down the road. So yeah,
And all you need to do is just re-gear it if you think you're going to do more highway too.
Yeah.
Well, they don't quit. They'll burn oil, but they'll keep going. Those things are
Yeah.
awesome. All right, you got a third?
Yeah, third's hard.
No, because I
found
think
it,
the
too.
I think the biggest thing is like that mid-size. I would pick any of those 650, the Nighthawk 750, the Harley 750. I think any of those. So that's probably sums up 3 or 4. But I think
Wait, what's
also,
a Harley 750?
the
what's that
street.
new one?
Oh, the water cooled
Yeah.
street.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, those did not go over well.
Yeah.
I've never
Well-
even seen one.
No, but it's probably
it
a
probably
great
is, you're
first
right.
bike. Honestly, It's like-
GS. Well, first
Oh,
they
the
came with the
GS
GS 500 and then GS
Oh wow,
750.
I've never seen one in
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
I do remember when they came out.
yeah,
Honestly, they're
Yeah.
good bikes.
They probably
for the street. They really are.
yeah, yeah. So I think I would just probably stay, if you're in the street version, something in the 500 to 750 cc range, and if you're looking for kind of a dual sport, that KLR 650 or Honda 650 or the DR. What's the Suzuki
DR, yeah.
DR?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think any of those would be a great first way
All
to
right.
get started.
DR 400, I think.
DRZ
Oh, no,
400.
Well,
yeah.
DRZ 400.
Yeah.
That was the dirt bike.
Yeah.
Street legal dirt bike.
I had one of those.
Yeah. The S or the supermotos
right.
that they did. One of the
I'm
few
gonna-
the factory
I'm gonna
supermotos.
blow you guys
where
out of the
bikes
water.
made
I
those.
got
They
some.
blow up
I got
on the
different
highway.
choices here because
Let's hear it.
I'm
I'm
cheap
psyched to
AF.
be-
I would go the route I did. I'm looking at 4-cylinder Japanese street bikes from the 80s. So, just price wise.
Oh, not so cheap
God,
anymore.
they used to be. Okay, maybe not the Honda.
Yeah,
So I
not anymore.
always said Nighthawk. I love Nighthawks for the price, at least the price they used to be, $1,000-$1,500. I agree the carburetor thing can be a nightmare because they're 4-cylinder carbs and they can be a pain. But the motor itself is absolutely bulletproof. Shaft drive.
Yep.
They're just killer bikes. And I'll also
Great
so.
bikes.
In addition to that, I would say the Suzuki GS series, like from the late 70s, early 80s. And now those are getting more expensive, but you used to be able to get a GS 750 for nothing. And it's another 4-cylinder.
Well, you can still get a Katana for
Well,
dirt
they're all the
cheap
same
now.
like
Those are
family of
awesome
motors. It's
bikes.
Suzuki's 4-cylinder street bike motor.
Just detuned or
they're
tuned differently, or different
bulletproof.
cams.
Again, carb problem. Like, yeah, you got to be willing to ride it. Don't let it sit because the carbs will be a nightmare. But Suzuki GS's.
If you can't do it, pay someone to do it once
Yeah.
and then just keep it running.
Yeah, they're
you
worth
go.
it.
Yeah. Start it.
The other one I was thinking of is also the Yamaha Maxim series, the Maxim 650s. Those things
Yes.
were, dude,
It's my
they're
first
awesome.
bike.
They're great. 650 4-cylinder. It's fast enough. It's comfortable. It does everything.
Amen.
Another
fond
one I'd
memories.
recommend is a Virago. The Yamaha Viragos never caught on. They're
Yep.
weird looking cruisers, but they're a real deal
it's-
V twin and the carburetors are not. It's 2 carbs, kind of weird sandwich carb thing inside of the cylinders, but they're not. I rebuilt my 920 that I had. It was a good bike. So you want a cheap
Yeah.
Japanese cruiser? A Virago is like, I'd go for one. They're weird looking bikes, but they're not bad.
I wouldn't suggest a Virago as the first one if you have to rebuild the carbs, because the first time you tried to pull those
It was
carbs
hard.
off on
It
those
was hard.
Viragos,
It was
so
pretty bad.
brutal.
that will turn you off to wrenching if that was
Yeah,
your
okay,
first
true.
time.
True. And the starter clutch goes
still
out
to
on
this
all of
day-
them. They sound like marbles.
Yeah, still
They're
to this
horrible.
day. Oh
They all
yeah,
have that
exactly.
problem.
Still, I will not work on a Virago ever
maybe
again.
we throw my Virago out. The oh well.
Your first
All right,
ones
hang
were
on,
great,
hang on.
Evan.
I had
Yeah,
one
they
more.
were
What was
great.
it? Oh, I was gonna say, okay, again, I'm going cheap. Japanese cruisers, a Honda Shadow. I know we were joking about it before. They're not. They're
No,
not
Shadows are great.
I personally don't think they're cool, but they're water cooled. They look kind of weird with the radiator on the front, but it doesn't matter for a cheap, super mega reliable cruiser that at first glance looks like a classic Harley. That Shadow Ace, the Ace American Classic Series bikes are like super cheap, look like 50s Harleys at first glance. You'll never have to work on it, and it'll take you around the world if you want to sit on it. I mean, it's like for the money.
Yeah.
Well, our buddy Joey
Excellent
has
motorcycles.
that 750.
Yeah.
That thing, he just continues that on that thing. It's got so many miles on
he
it.
got in the same crash last summer, and that thing like came out almost unscathed after sliding for 50 feet or something. It's unbelievable how good those are made. So, anyways, yeah, I'm like that'd be a solid recommendation for me. Like for the money, great bike, great first bike.
Well, I like that we had all kind of different variations of.
Well, so.
Well, and that goes back to what you were, don't get it when you think your friends are cool. Like you want to, a bike's going to be an extension of your personality.
Yeah.
If your buddy wears tight jeans and your other buddy wears whatever, it's like you need to just be comfortable in who you are and ride what you think you're going to.
Well,
really
and you
enjoy.
never have to keep a motorcycle.
Well, the thing
forever. You can always sell it. And
Exactly.
Amen.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. Is like this likely won't be your
Right.
first bike.
Right.
That's right.
Like you'll have many after. You have many
Yeah,
chances to have.
So what do you look
Say
at?
more than one,
like
or
when you're buying a first bike, like we're not going to go in depth here. We're not rebuilding motors, but like what do you look at? You're
No.
going to check out a used bike to buy. Like what are the main things? A lot of this is just common sense, right? But like what
Yeah, I think.
do you pay attention to?
One of the things that I think is like when you pull up, where is the bike? Is it outside in a shed? Is it in the garage? Has it been left on the side of the house? You'll be able to tell that stuff. And you just, buying a bike that's been outside for 4 years, you're just asking for it. All the
Absolutely.
rubber, at least up
Yeah.
here, like when we're at altitude, all the rubber will be hard and cracked, and you'll just be
Seats
into it
don't
so
last.
much. Even if it's a $800 bike, you'll be $2,000 into it so quickly.
just making it not
Yeah.
leak. I mean,
Yeah.
in California, where I'm at, California sun just dries
For sure.
everything out.
So you can probably tell the condition of the bike within the first 2 minutes of walking around it. Is the paint clean? Is the seat in good shape? Has it obviously been stored inside and taken care of? I think that's your first general quick look. Always good in any sort of vehicle purchase to pull the dipstick or look
for
at the
sure.
oil if you can.
Yeah, you can usually
And
check,
smell it.
You can check stuff like
Yeah.
brake pads a lot of times just by looking down into the calipers, see how worn they are. You can do stuff like check the exhaust pipe, see if it's warm, if it had been run recently. That's
That's something
always
that
worthwhile.
I was
because a
gonna
cold
mention
start
on.
is going to tell you a lot to see how the thing starts up
Exactly.
on its own.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Usually,
So-
if I'm selling a bike, I'll grab the header to show them it's cold. If the person's not
Exactly.
willing
Have you
to
ever?
do that,
This
that
is
means
just.
they've been.
I'm just wondering. Has anybody ever had that happen where you showed up and somebody like lied about it or something and it was warm, and they said it was cold? I mean, I never have. I know that's a good thing.
Well,
but,
I've always had different approaches buying motorcycles because I've always bought motorcycles as a
Yeah.
project, not something I
Yeah.
was gonna buy, just start riding. So this is where I was gonna lean on you guys.
Well,
definitely.
I'll say here's one of the
more
best
so.
tips I think I could give, only because I'm so fucking guilty of doing this that it's ridiculous. Do not show up and get like obsessed with the bike you're looking at and be willing to overlook tons of shit just because you really want it. Because I do that all the time, and usually I'm fine with buying a project or something that needs work or whatever, but I'll justify crap like crazy just because I want it. I mean, I'll buy stuff that I probably shouldn't sometimes just because I'm like, oh, I really want this. This thing's awesome. And then I get into a mess because I really wanted it and it wasn't worthwhile. So
It's always good to step away and go have lunch or a cup of coffee and really consider what
come
you just
back.
looked
Well,
at.
and the
Yeah.
problem is my
That's
first
really
call
good
is usually
advice
to
for-
Max, and then he will usually recommend that I buy it.
That's terrible. Yeah, don't ask me.
Well,
for
you've
advice.
done the
Never
same
mind.
thing to me
Just buy
multiple
it.
times as well. I don't think.
Oh my God! I just want someone to
It's-
tell me I
it's
should do it.
funny that we're preaching to people about this when we don't always take our own advice. But
well, we're saying what
Yeah,
do as I say,
true.
not as I
We've
do.
Not
learned
what I
hard
do.
lessons.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, that's really
The
good
other thing-
advice for first bike.
yes, yes.
But for your second bike, that's going to happen.
yeah, for sure.
What
for
you
sure.
explained,
Yeah.
Evan, was
Yeah.
you're buying it because you are in love
Yeah.
with that bike. You don't need
Yeah, true.
that
Good
bike.
point. Good
You
point.
want that.
I would
bike.
stress
Yeah.
be pickier about your first bike. Do it. Don't.
Yeah.
Don't waste your time on
absolutely.
junk.
Like your first tattoo. Be picky
Oh,
about
my
your first
tattoo's
tattoo.
horrible, though I wasn't picky. I don't think I can recommend. I mean, I would
Well,
recommend it, but
my
mine's
first-
horrendous.
Yeah, my first tattoo is on my inside of my lip.
That
oh,
sounds painful.
good Lord!
And then my second one
Jeez.
was on my ass.
All right, so I think
I was gonna make.
So
I was gonna make
that's
a really bad
that's a
joke.
good that's a good
Gotta
I don't
example.
know if anybody
of-
should take any of our
Yeah.
advice, to be honest.
Well, don't
Well, let's
at least
go-
take my tattoo advice.
Let's go back. So you've gone to now. You're at the bike. You've looked at it. It looks
Yeah.
really good. You pulled the oil dipstick if there is one, or you looked at the sight glass.
Yeah.
It looks good. Obviously, this bike is taken
Yeah.
care of. Another great option is to ask the person, do you have any records? Is there any history
Yeah.
on the bike? You know,
Yeah.
because a lot of bikes will require maintenance of sorts, and sometimes they'll be like, yeah, I take it into the
Yeah.
dealership, and even though it's got 18,000 miles on it, I've taken it for the 12,000 mile valve
Right.
service. I've taken every blah blah blah. So
Yeah,
that's
that's a
something
plus.
for a first bike
plus.
buyer. You know, it just helps to get so you know that the second I get home, I'm not going to
Right.
have to take this thing in for a valve adjustment
Right.
or blah blah blah. You know, I just try to eliminate
Mm-hmm.
those things where you can just enjoy the bike, and then I think
That's
Start-
pretty crucial if it's an Italian motorcycle.
Oh, God, yeah.
start the bike, get it started, make sure the blinkers, the brake light works, the headlight works. Little things like that go a long
Yeah.
way on your first
Yeah,
first
right.
bike. You know, when you get better, you might be fine with hand signals or whatever if you want to.
Well,
kind of a more
and
retro
keep in
look,
mind
but-
though, like say a turn signal bulb is out or taillight's out or something. Like you don't necessarily need to walk away from the bike. You can also negotiate the price down for minor stuff if
Exactly.
you're okay
Yeah.
with it.
Absolutely.
One thing I was going to say
Yeah.
that I think is a really good idea is ask the guy or girl or whatever why you're selling it. How long have you had it and why are you
Yes.
selling it?
Good.
Now,
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't ever walk away from something just because somebody's flipping it. I don't really care how long they've owned it, but it can tell
Yeah,
you
exactly.
something sometimes, and it could give you a heads up for something to pay attention
Yeah.
to. If they've owned it for a month,
It'll
Well,
give
then
you
you'll just-
insight on like a good deal
True.
too.
That's it. If the guy's like, I'm the original owner, I'm the only one that's done. Oh, and by the way, I do my oil changes every 3,000.
Yeah.
I always go
Yeah.
here. Like it's a great
Yeah.
question to ask.
but
I
I'm
think.
wary of a guy who has owned it for 3 months and then says, "Oh yeah, always done the oil changes." And it's like, okay, well, what does that mean? You owned it for 3 months. You did
Right,
one
you
oil
did
change,
Yeah,
one.
exactly.
which is also fine. But like, just do your, dig a little bit and see, because that can give you more
Yeah.
insight to how it was maintained. But also, like we talked about, pick the right bike. Pick something that's not super maintenance or failure prone or something. Because if it's your first bike, you probably want to ride it a lot, not wrench on it, right? So make sure you pick something in that category.
Don't get like a early 2000
Yeah.
Ducati.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, Desmo.
And I see you put here in the notes, feeling from seller. I think that's a great point. Like honestly,
that's huge.
It's
Yeah.
totally fine to trust your gut reaction. If somebody's shady or
Honestly, that's the main thing I buy
Yeah,
from.
that's a good point.
If it's a donor bike, it's not necessarily like, if I'm planning on building something, it doesn't matter if it runs. That doesn't mean so
Yeah.
much. But if it's something like, all right, well, I trust that it's running, I want to ride it out of here, that's a huge
Yeah,
one.
for sure.
Is this guy just sketchy and I don't believe him? And usually if they're talking the bike up a lot, that's when I
Yeah.
don't trust what
Yeah.
they're saying.
Yeah, you can be real hard on a bike and still have low miles.
Yeah,
you know, if this guy's gonna taking the CBR out and is stunting it and doing all this hard stuff on the bike, you could have stress fractures.
Stunting you could see. Because it's
I guess I'm thinking like
guaranteed to have
wheelies
been
and
down.
Not if he
stoppies
was a
on
good stunter.
e-bike.
Not if he was really good.
Yeah,
No, it's
yeah.
If it was his,
I saw Danny Dixon's. Oh, maybe I'm supposed to say his name, but I saw his
I don't think it's a
$40,000 bike. Oh my
hammered.
God, it was just destroyed. He just destroys it. He rides that thing so hard, and it was a brand
and it
new
probably
bike.
had low miles.
yeah, but that's also a very particular category
Sure.
of motorcycles.
Sure. But sometimes just going back to like what your feeling is if you walk up and the guys or the gal's a total chump, you just be like, ew, this doesn't feel good to me. I don't want to buy a bike.
Yeah.
From this
Well, it's
person.
just like buying a used car or whatever. Like, trust your gut on it. It's it has a lot to do with it. It's totally fine to walk away.
Yeah,
There's a million
absolutely.
motorcycles out there, so if one is not the right one, don't worry about it. And check the tires, check all the obvious stuff. I do think it's bringing a friend or somebody that might know more about bikes than you do is always helpful. That that might be
Absolutely.
able to point it out,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
or
a
even
good
test
call.
ride it.
Yeah, good call.
Maybe better than you could to check everything. But you can.
Well, another thing too is like, say you don't have a friend that rides motorcycles or a family member that has any experience. And just also, if someone has experience riding motorcycles, it doesn't mean you have to put your whole trust into them
Right.
to tell you that this is a good bike. Because a lot of people that ride motorcycles just know how to ride them. It doesn't mean they know how to
Yeah,
pick the right
correct.
bike for
Right.
you.
Yeah,
Especially
right.
a
Yeah,
used
right.
one. But there's also like, call your local motor shop or local motor mechanic and see, hey, can I pay you $100 and check this bike out with
That's
me?
a good point.
Or
That's a good
can
idea.
I
Yeah.
bring it to you?
Can you
and
bring
you
it to
just
him? Yeah.
do that
once
could
over.
be a
Yeah,
meetup point.
That's a good idea.
Because
And honestly, anybody who's not okay
chances-
with that is probably somebody you don't want to buy a bike from.
yeah, they're like, well, they'll say it's like, oh, that's an inconvenience, or and if it's an inconvenience to them, then they don't want to sell it.
Well, I feel like, yes, it's an inconvenience, but that also means you have a pretty dedicated seller. So personally, I would make time
Yeah,
for that because
absolutely.
that tells me, I feel like nobody does that, but I'd be all for it if I was selling a bike and somebody said that. I'd say, sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, with friends, like I've gone to look at motorcycles for them that they were purchasing, but not everyone has friends like me
Yeah,
or us.
right.
That know what to look for, or
Right.
at least. But local motorcycle shops, they'll that's common for
for
them.
sure.
So
Yeah,
either
it'll be,
they'll send someone out, or they'll recommend, hey, take it here when you look at the bike, have them bring it there, whatever. And honestly, like if you're spending say $3,000 to $5,000 on a bike,
Worthwhile.
$100 is
nothing.
not much.
Yeah, for it's good insurance.
And
the other thing I was going to say is,
absolutely.
if you don't have a friend like us, you don't have someone to go look, and it just might be a good opportunity to go to your local dealership or your local used bike place, because a lot of those places, they're not going to sell a bike with bad tires or old oil. They're going to do that work. If you're buying a used bike, you might pay a little bit more, but it's a pretty good chance they'll have put new tires on it. They'll have changed the oil. They'll have done a tune-up.
Have
you can
some
just
kind of
buy the
warranty.
bike
Yeah.
and ride the bike, and you don't. The first thing you're not thinking of is, oh, I got to get it home and order tires, and you
Yeah.
just want to ride.
No,
You're
that's a
so
good
excited
point.
when it's your first
Yep.
bike. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're also
Like-
going to be spending more, like almost double,
Yeah.
I'd say.
yeah, you can, but sometimes
that could be
that might just
worthwhile.
be if you don't have
Yeah.
the skills, you just got to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
You got to bite the bullet for your first bike and be safe. And
I'm a cheap
Well,
ass.
I am.
So
I am
that's
too,
why.
man.
Personally, I wouldn't follow that advice. I go buy the cheapest thing I can and then crash
Yeah.
course through keeping it
Yeah.
on the road. But is
Yeah.
that necessarily the best advice for everybody? No, not at all.
No.
There's a lot of people that
No.
shouldn't do that. but I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
Well, I know we had some talk about servicing.
We have
a bike, but
another-
let's put that into another
yeah.
episode, I think, because we're pushing an
I
hour 20
agree.
now,
I think
so.
that is another one.
So yeah, I think let's wrap it
Yeah.
up. Does anybody have any other thoughts on this? Like we covered some good info here, I think, on buying a bike.
I just really
Yeah,
want to
me
go buy
too.
a bike right now.
I can never have too many.
Since I got rid of my 701, I honestly haven't really wanted to get another bike.
You literally
for right
said it was
now.
the best motorcycle ever
Yeah.
made, and I think you should probably buy another one.
Yeah.
Oh,
Or
I
sounds
will.
Like you really,
No.
really love
Or
Sportsters.
I absolutely. I actually do have a project that I've been wanting to build for 7 years, maybe 10 now. That is based on a sporty, solid mount, Evo sporty
Yeah, I'd
model,
recommend
Fun.
that then.
and it's hardtailed, and it's going to be a canyon
Oh,
carver.
that'd be cool.
Oh no!
Well,
it's gonna
there's
be
a lot
awesome.
of talk. A bunch of us are going to do the Colorado backcountry discovery route this summer and ride north to south across Colorado off road. And the current plan is to build Sportsters, to
Well-
buy cheap Sportsters and build them for this trip. I don't know if that'll actually happen, but there's still a lot of talk going on about that. So
I'm
and
not holding my
I
breath.
kind of think we'll end up buying KLRs, but the current plan is Sportsters.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah, well, mine's on tarmac. It's not. It's definitely not going to be an off-road vehicle at
Yeah,
all.
well, it's
Um,
yeah, we'll see what happens with that. Well, anyways, all right, let's wrap it
All right.
up. I think this was good. So
Yeah,
we
we'll wrap it
talked
up.
about how to buy your first bike, what to look for. I think there was a lot of good info there. But yeah, I think that'll do it, and we'll be back soon with another
right.
episode. We'll keep things going, and again, we still don't
yeah,
have.
we'll tighten it up too as we go.
Yeah, we
along.
got a lot of work to do, that's for sure. But we got a good start.
Yeah.
And we still don't have website stuff
Um,
figured out. There'll be info coming soon when we kind of get all that stuff sorted.
Mhm.
So, anyways, hope you like this and keep following us as we keep working on new stuff.
Yeah. See you on the next one. I'm thinking
Yeah.
maybe car or truck. How to buy your
Yep,
first one.
I think that'll do it.
Oh,
right
That's
on.
going to be probably a difficult one too.
All right, we'll talk to you guys soon.
All right.
See ya.
Thank you.
Feeling alright.